Harry Humphries. How cool is that? What a badass this dude was. Vietnam vet, 2 platoons, ran around with MARSOC. Those guys are big buddies. Silver Star in Vietnam, and went on to pursue an acting career, military and technical advisor for all these shows, Armageddon, G.I. Jane, the Rock. You guys have all seen him in there. Oh, there's a picture of the man. Oh, quite a badass. Quite a badass.
Okay. All right, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, I'm kicking, man. A good bunch of guys out here. Guys just aspire to do, what you and I did, and just everybody's got a little something they did, and very cool. Everybody knows who Harry Humphries is, so great. Glad to have you here, man.
I don't understand why that happened. It's goes back to Dick Marcinko. Basically, he asked me to do him a favor when he sold his book Rogue Warrior to Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer years ago, and he said, "Oh, by the way, Harry," who I was sitting down at the table next to him with the producers, and he says, "Harry will do all the technical stuff." And he and I had not talked about any of this, and I had no desire to work with anybody in Hollywood. The furthest thing from my mind. And he volunteered my services, and I've been in trouble for 30 or 20 years since that time. So that's how things happen.
That's exactly how they happen, and I don't know, different mentality you and I have. The SEALs that went through, you just keep seeking that. Just stay aggressive, stay sharp, just keep pushing forward. And just let it happen. So cool.
It's all about maintaining yourself that you found when you went through the SEAL selection process, and you utilize who you found, and don't ever let him go. Let that person guide you through the rest of your life, and you'll have a good life.
There you go. Well, it was interesting for me today because we do share a bit more in common. And I remember you telling me that you were on a destroyer in the Navy and wanted a better way. I was actually on a ship with my wife, and man, I had to get off of that thing too. So what pushed you into the Navy, Harry? Was your father a vet, any of your brothers, or?
Well, basically, I was on the way to the academy. I was in a naval prep school, Admiral Farragut Academy in Pine Beach, New Jersey. And I was a lucky guy that won 3 scholarships to various colleges other than the Naval Academy. Obviously, the Naval Academy had no scholarship program for sports, but I got an option to go to 3 colleges, and I had spent 4 years at Farragut wearing a naval uniform, and I said, well, hell, I'm going to give this civilian school a shot because they have girls in civilian schools. And basically, that put me at Rutgers University, and then in the process of being at Farragut, I was in the Naval Reserve at the same time because it was a prep school for the academy, and that's how we got our appointments. But my surface unit was attached to, when I was in college, was called active duty during the Berlin Wall crisis. So that was a 6-month tour at sea, being jerked out of my class, and we had a 2-year active duty obligation to serve, so I said, hell, I've got 6 months and I might as well finish up my 2-year deal before I go back to school again. Well, in the process, they shipped me over to the Malloy EDE Experimental Destroyer Escort out of New London, Connecticut. We were working with the Underwater Sound Lab, and she was steaming constantly, working with new variable depth sonar gear. So we got very little time in port, and a year aboard her, then I started looking for a way to get off the vessel so I could perhaps see some short duty somewhere, or at least a more reasonable in and out of port type schedule on another vessel. So Bupers at the time, we had that organization inside of our Navy, came out twice a year with a request for volunteers for UDTR, and then they had a brief description on what you would be doing and your qualifications and so on, very quick requirements and physical aptitudes and so on, pretty much like they have today. And I said, okay, I'll do that because I'm assured of getting off this ship. Well, 7 chits later, because the captain wouldn't let me go, I got transferred to UDTR for the winter class of 1963 in Little Creek, Virginia, class 29.
I was just guessing. I've always heard the horror stories about the training in Little Creek. I didn't know you'd gone through a winter class. So yeah, this is going to be interesting.
Well, we lost 11 guys in our class to frostbite. We had, and it wasn't in the water. It was on a land op. We were doing the RECON patrol. That was one of the selection activities. That in Camp Pickett. I'm sure you remember Camp Pickett or know where that is.
Oh yeah.
And it was a very, very snowy night. One of the worst blizzards that ever hit Virginia. It hit that particular week we were there, and we actually lost our way. We had no. We had a white snow blanket, a whiteout situation. So we broke training and lit a fire, and everybody got around the fire, and some of the guys took their shoes off and stuck their feet close to the fire. Some guys actually burned the soles on their shoes. I mean, you want to talk about a goat fuck. But in any case, 11 guys wound up with severe case of frostbite. 3 of those were foreign students, and the rest were U.S. And 2 of the U.S. guys got surveyed out of the Navy as a result. So that was what a taste of winter class was back in those days. And you were right. I heard you talk about winter class around the world boat deal, which is in those days we were using IBLs, the large rubber boats, and we were actually using paddles to break the ice to make a path. In fact, our boat, the front right starboard pontoon ruptured because of the ice cutting through the pontoon. So now we had a boat with a deflated starboard bow, which complicated our boat trip that much more during the Hell Week period. But a lot of good times, and the men that came out of that class stayed very close together. As you mentioned earlier, Jack Lynch, who was one of my dear classmates and one of the great contributors to our UDT SEAL Association in his civilian life, was recently passed away. So
yeah, that's
we had a
tough.
bunch of guys like Jack in our class, and I'm proud to be a member of that class.
Well, I see that class a lot. There's a couple of classes that really do the big reunion thing every year out at the reunion.
Right,
And,
that's where you want to do that. Yeah.
29's always out there, and yeah, hearing it from Jack. But now, when you, how long was Buds back then?
Same as now. I think only we did it differently. We didn't have the phase system. We did, but it wasn't so official. We had basically most of the training was conducted in Little Creek, or in those days Coronado, and then from there we would go to jump school in Benning, and then from Benning we would go down to Key West to lung school. So our second phase was actually our last phase in those days.
Mm-hmm.
It was in those days we were diving the Mark 6 mixed gas, then we were diving Dreggers to start with, and then we went to Emerson's, which was a goat fuck during that period of time. We went to an all-U.S. manufactured system under Kennedy. He didn't want us to use the German system. And, of course, as soon as we went to the Emerson system, we had all sorts of mechanical problems with the barium hydroxide CO2 absorbent system, and we were getting channeling and all that sort of thing. And guys were getting knocked out on O2 hits left and right as a result of the inefficiency. So
That was the Emerson?
that was the Emerson rig, yeah. We tried modifying the Emerson in-house and so on, as we do in the teams, you know that. And eventually went back to the Dregger, to the LR5, which you guys are still diving, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is probably one of the best systems out there, other than the Oxygen 51, which is the French system that we had a chance to dive to. But very, very sorry to hear about that diving accident. First I heard about it was on your podcast here today. Do we have any background on that?
Day dive, found him unattended. You know, you start thinking of buddy lines and everything else. How could it happen? You know, especially in daytime, Key West. But you know, just like you were talking about, O2 hits. You know, so you never know. You know, some of the, you know, it takes so little time to get in trouble down there, and you know. But you know, when you talk about the channeling of the rigs, there's a couple other problems that go along with them. You know, you got to, you know, have it together, and kind of at this point, who knows what, but.
I've been with two occasions on dives where we had O2 hits. One guy actually, who was our platoon chief, I wasn't in the water, I was on the support craft, I had already come out, but most capable guy I ever met in my entire life, and certainly at that time, my God, my hero. And to see him come out of the water in a epileptic fit as a result of the O2 hit was just something that rattled your cage. You know, you realize that nobody is really free from getting involved in a situation that creates the oxygen toxicity. You know, even though you do pass the oxygen tolerance test, as you explained earlier, you still can be under a strenuous condition where your physiology weakens to a point where the O2 will affect you. So it's something you got to be wary of as a frogman. That's why the buddy line, the swim buddy line, is so important. The two-man rule should never be violated.
Yeah. You know, anything dehydration, you know, guys that have a, you know, a cold or something, you know, and you know, we get taught so extensively to recognize the warning symptoms of something that's coming up, but sometimes they are so subtle, and before you know it, you know, they get that O2 hit, and it's just kind of lights out. So yeah.
In our water phase days when you were in platoons back then, and I'm doing a little nostalgia here, and I apologize for that. But
oh, go ahead, guys, eat it up.
The symptoms for you know, we would train in St. Thomas, which was really tough duty. If your platoon wasn't deployed to the Med or South America or wherever, and I'm speaking now for East Coast SEALs and UDT and SEALs, you know, you would do a 2-month requalification trip to St. Thomas, which is where we did all of our deep water work, diving, or rather our skydiving and jump work and so on, because we're away from the world down there. We could do whatever we needed to do, a lot of heavy demolition work, etc. Would all be done down there during that period. And of course, the only regulation we had was that Liberty commenced at 16:30, and of course, reveille was not an issue, but morning quarters was an issue, and you had to be standing tall at 05:30 at parade rest in front of your platoon leader, and they didn't care if you came back that night or not. You had to be there. That's, if you violated that, you were in big trouble. In other words, they were treating us as adults, as they should have. What you did with your free life was up to your own volition. So, problem was that St. Thomas was also a very popular resort area for young ladies coming down from New York to want to get away and that type of thing. And we tended to stay out later than perhaps we should have. And often we would be standing in formation on the morning run, maybe not as sober as we should have been. This is before our awareness of excessive use of alcohol and so on. But the symptoms that we were taught, and we would be consciously aware of in diving mixed gas or closed circuit, was the fact that you would become nauseous and perhaps even want to vomit, you know, and so on while you're doing your swim. Well, that's pretty much everybody thinking they had O2 problems, getting ready to hit them every morning we swam. So it was a tough life in the old days.
Exactly. Really. Yeah. How many guys did you start training with?
Class 29 started with 120, and we finished up with like 30, and 11 of those were foreign troops, foreign students.
Yeah, pushing them in. The guys still ask a lot of questions about the foreign guys that go through. You know, You know, Koreans have gone to Thais, Saudis. You know, some are, you know, good friends overseas. They go through, but you know, what always killed me about the foreign guys was, you know, like the Koreans or the Thais that went through. They'd already been through buds training in their own country,
Exactly.
which was, you know, pretty brutal if you've ever seen the Koreans go through that or the Thais, you know, and to come here for another ass whooping. You know, I always admired the guys, you know,
Yeah.
for doing that. You know,
Yeah, no,
tough.
same situation with us. We had a group of Dutch commandos come through our class, and one Pakistani officer, believe it or not. And the Dutch commandos were just super divers. They were great. They specialized more in the water ops than they did land ops, but they were in awesome shape. And you know, during the Hell Week phase, and you mentioned through several of your sessions, especially in talking about fitness, if you're in good shape and your aerobics are where they should be in terms of being able to handle long, stressful runs, especially beach runs. I mean, you're going to be so much further ahead of the game. And that was the case with these Dutch commandos. They were in such great shape. They were whizzing by us left and right. But by the time we got through, halfway through the course, we were leaving them in our dust. But life becomes a lot easier if you get your butt in shape before you get there.
Oh, yeah.
Stressing long runs, stressing the standard PT cycles and stretching, and work on aerobics. Don't work on bulk so much. You can do the bulk stuff once you become a team guy.
Yeah, that's where a lot of guys blow it. You know, if more dudes knew what they were getting themselves in, it was kind of funny when you talked about it today, because it really didn't sound like you really fully knew what you were getting yourself into.
I had no idea. No idea. I mean, the thing that saved me was I was a college athlete, and I was playing football for a major school when I was just sucked in on active duty. But so I was still in fairly decent shape as a result of that. But there's so many guys that were pulled in that just wanted to get the hell. I mean, guys in the diving community that were in horrible shape. I mean, hard hat divers, salvage divers. A little known fact is in the early days of the diving community, a diver did not have to qualify on a swim test. In other words, many first-class divers and salvage divers, hard hat divers, couldn't swim a lick because there was no scuba qualification in the early days. And when scuba was accepted as a legitimate means of maintaining a job underwater, especially shallow depth, then swimming became a compulsory entity in the diving discipline. And it was only then that, since scuba, that the Navy required divers to be able to swim. So we had like 30-year-old guys that looked like old men, you know, they beat up and so on. But they were tough, and those guys made it through. They were the knuckle draggers.
There you have it. Were you weak at anything when you went through Bud's area? Something you wished you'd have worked on more or knew more about?
Probably on the aerobic end of the running. I didn't run as much as I could have, you know. So the runs were tough for me initially. Just getting my conditioning, my aerobic conditioning, up to where it belonged. But the PT and the rest, it was fairly simple for me. And I did get there early, so I was like the first. How'd you like to be this guy? The first student to report to class 29, like 3 weeks before the class started. So and I had to work in the instructor's hut, supporting whatever they needed, so on, you know. And of course, they had nobody else to pick on but me, so it was quite an experience.
It still goes on, you know. You're told, you know, and that was the best advice I ever got about buds was don't show up until the very last minute, you know. You know, 'cause they're gonna, you know. I tell these guys on here, the only thing worse than a SEAL instructor is a bored one. And especially if there's two of them hanging out at lunchtime or something with nothing to do, and here you come strolling by, you know. Oh, no.
I got every one of them.
There you go.
You know, the beautiful part about that, I mean, I can remember every one of my instructors, Dave Casey and guys like that. And Dave, by the way, is the one that got the O2 hit in the Caribbean. But in any case, I got to go to war with every one of those instructors, every one of them, either as a fellow platoon member, or when I was running training for SEAL 2, we used to have our own in-house pre-deployment training. So just like you we did back then too, and that was something that developed during the Vietnam period. And we're actually training on operations that were part of our after-action reports. So we would actually take our negative and positive after-action reports and put them into a training scenario and let the SEAL platoons work out their own problems. It was a good way to learn. You know, it's learn by the mistakes that we made. I think to a great extent we still do that today.
Oh, we sure as hell do. You know, it's surprising. You know, everything you're saying still goes on. You know, I tell these guys, and they get it, that you're going to be that's why the instructors out there, you know, we're just not big business in SEAL team. It's small. You're going to work with these guys again outside of, you know, really large Army units or going through jump training, you know, but you're going to be in platoons with your BUDS instructors, and they have a commitment to those teams to, you know, get the best guys going through. So
I mean, the guy you're training is a guy that's going to save your life, and that's basically the attitude and the brotherhood that develops. I mean, it's interesting to watch. I mean, I was aware of some of it. What I'm speaking about for the audience specifically is the love that the instructors have, the hidden love, and let's stress hidden love that the instructors have for the students, and the respect that they have for the students is there, but it's hidden. You'll never know about it as a student. But the respect, for instance, I was in a chow hall with a class 2-something a year or so ago. I'm getting ready to do a show on Marcus Luttrell's book, Lone Survivor, and I'm going to be a producer on it. And I had the director down there going through, down at Coronado, going through Hell Week. And the students were taken into the chow hall, and of course they're segregated from the rest of the population in the chow hall. And of course you see the poor bastards are beat up and they're in their gear and it's probably sandy and wet and so on, you know, and they're looking kind of miserable, you know. But then you see these punks that are sitting over across the way, looking and smiling and laughing at how funny a guy looks. And I remember one guy in particular, an instructor, a good friend of mine, I'm not going to mention any names, he's still an operator, gets up, goes over, jerks the guy out of his seat, and says to him very, very clearly and very loud, "You don't have the right to even look at these guys, let alone laugh at them." So that's a demonstration of the love and the respect that the instructors have. Even though you're not fully qualified yet, you're still considered a cut above the regular dude because you have balls enough to go through the exercise.
yeah, in that respect, you know, it's you really put it a good way. It's hidden, but you know, the longer you're in BUDS, the more you know the name gets passed around, and from instructor to instructor, phase to phase. You know who the standouts are, and that air of respect becomes even greater up to, you know, when you the third phase. You know,
Sure.
you're really getting to know these guys well. They really know you, and they'll lay the pipe to you quick. But it's certainly there. And, you know, when I graduated, one of the guest speaker made a comment that really took me back. I remember to this day. He said, "You guys never knew this at the time, but these instructors have only been trying to get you through the training. They have been trying to teach you how to be a SEAL. Whether you felt that way or not, that's all they've been doing." And I thought about it, and I was like, you know, you're right. You know, for the first time, it made sense. You know, they're just not trying to get rid of everybody here. You know, they're trying to teach you. You know, so
Exactly.
cool
You
stuff.
know, and it's amazing. I mean, I've seen through the years. I've stayed very close to the community. As you well know, I love the community, and it's part of me, and I'll never leave it. And that goes for you as well, and guys like us. I mean, there are those that leave it, they punch their ticket, and we never see them again. But the ones that stay close, there's a love that you'll never get rid of, and it's the love of the brotherhood. But I get down there quite a lot, and I've seen through the years, and I've seen the iterations of training styles, and watched it become more and more scientific in its approach. And now it's very, very efficient. The guys are really pro as compared to my era, where there was a few guys that would stay as permanent instructors, and then the others would phase in and out. They'd rotate for a quasi-shore billet type status before they go back to a platoon. But the attrition rates, as much as the pressure has been put on the command, on the Naval Special Warfare Command, to get more people through, and some pressure to actually try to lower the bar. None of that has ever happened. The bar has never been lowered. In fact, it's been increased, and the attrition rate still stays around 70%. Sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little less, but you can count on losing about 70% of the class in every class that goes through. The majority of that is, in my mind, from my experience, and I have to be careful, I caveat that, is the mental fortitude. It's not about physical ability, it's more about the mental drive that you have as a human being to go through the rigors of trying to get through the selection process of this community. It ain't for the faint of heart. And if you're driven mentally to do it, and I don't care if you're a 90-pound weakling, you will get through and you will be a good SEAL.
I have a good buddy, spent a lot of time as a BUDS instructor. That guy did everything, but he's down here for the courses, and he's very honest about it. And he says, training is a hell of a lot harder now, than it was when we went through. We had that animalistic, just some of the stuff, and but they are. When you say they're becoming much more efficient, they're getting a hell of a lot smarter. They make the training, some of the stuff we did, compared to what they're doing out there now. Man, they are producing a really good operator. When these guys come out of BUDS, man, they are rock stars.
Their awareness of how to keep in shape, get in shape, and individually becomes that's something that we just never even considered. We just got through. It was more of an animalistic thing back in the early days. And I got class 29 when I went through that period. I mean, the guys that were in Korea were ancient, and it wasn't that many years prior. But even then, those guys were more, shall we say, antiquated than we were. I mean, but yet the characters that come out seem to still be the same guys, the same, shall we say, pig-headed individuals that refuse to quit, if I could put it in a very basic manner.
It's the whole mindset. It hasn't changed, It's just take care of your buddies, look out, all for the teams,
Exactly.
Crazy. What were you really strong at when you went through BUDS? Something you really excelled at out there?
I was the honor man in my class, and I was a good swimmer. I was very good on the yoke course. Again, all the athletic stuff that the football background had given me was to my advantage.
How about that?
I think the greatest honor of my life is to have been the honor man of class 29.
I bet, there you go. I didn't get it, but, you ask for somebody for their strength, and there you go. I mean, how do you top that? Class honor, man, not an easy thing, especially in a BUDS class, because there's so many rock stars in it, so good for you, man. Awesome. What can we, now, when you got out of the, where were you assigned when you got out of BUDS? Where was your first assignment?
UDT 22, and then I spent a year over at 22. I did a couple of deployments with 22, and then I was the first non-plank owner to go over to SEAL 2. The plank owners, the shipping over rate back in those days was like 95%. Nobody was getting out. And we had one guy get out. There was no opening over there at the time, and I put in my request to go over to SEAL team as soon as I realized what it was. And for those that aren't sure of what the difference was, we in those days the underwater demolition teams were the Navy commandos. There's no question about that. And then in 1962, President Kennedy realized the need for a special forces fighting element in all service. Colorado, and SEAL Team 2 was commissioned in Little Creek, Virginia. 50 guys were taken from the UDTs on both coasts. I think it was Lieutenant Del Judas was the first CO of SEAL Team 1, and
Roy Bohm.
And then Roy Bohm was the OIC of SEAL Team 2. Our first CO was John Callahan, who was a West Coast officer, and he was being transferred from the West Coast to the East Coast. And Callahan had to go to schools to get his quals up to be in line with what was required for a SEAL officer for that time, for the new requirements as a SEAL officer. And he was gone for 6 months. And during that period of time, Roy Bohm, who was a senior officer present, was given the position of OIC. And they reported directly to the group commanders, Group 1 and Group 2 commanders. So Roy Bohm, who was a great guy, I mean, he was a SEAL, and he had this. You remind me a lot of Ashley, Don.
I met him. Harry Williams was a plank owner at Team 2.
Yeah, I know Harry.
When he died, Team 2 loaded up a van. I was one. I jumped right on that one, and we all drove up to Pennsylvania to, did some head-to-toe watches, his casket. Carried him out, did the whole bit for him. But I met Roy up there, and Red Cannon, and a lot of the old guys, and just so happened there was an American Legion right there that opened the bar for us. So we spent a lot of time together. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, he's super. He's a good buddy of mine, and he goes down as one of my favorites. He fought his battles politically, but as a typical Mustang officer in the teams, there was a little bit of class warfare going on even back then. And Roy did things in a gruff manner and perhaps stepped on some toes he should not have stepped on. Same with Marcinko. Marcinko was a great commander in terms of his ability to lead men in combat. But and if it wasn't for Dick Marcinko, our tier one team perhaps may not have been formed up. He did some things that he shouldn't have done, no question about it. His mannerism was such that he was more of a showman than an officer, but in reality, his love for the men and the mission was far ahead of most of the officers that were standing by during that period when he was appointed as the commissioning officer, commander for the Tier 1 team.
Well, that's still very common. We just had that incident with the the SEALs with the assault thing, and people don't understand. We get that very aggressive mentality, that very aggressive mindset. We go after what we want, and it's hard when you're up against somebody who does not possess that. And you can rub people the wrong way with that thing, and you get these very outspoken guys like Dick and Roy, and the teams are just filled with them, and it does start to chafe people's ass the wrong way sometimes. But
I'll tell you what, I went to war with Dick. I was in the 8th Platoon with him during the Tet Offensive, and we kicked some serious ass. We only lost one guy, and that was Ted Risher. He and I were together on a rooftop when he got hit in the head with a lucky BB. We were setting up a 57 recoilless position over the top of, looking down at the command and control center for the Viet Cong that had taken over the city of Chow Doc. And we kicked some serious ass, and fortunately we lost Ted. And Dick was back at the TOC coordinating with the rest of the military. But he had this way of stepping on people and getting it, that got in his way, and was overly gruff, and that became the origin of his persona non grata when it came to the civilized, especially peacetime military. But during wartime, he was a good leader. And a lot of people have a bad impression about him because there's been some folks that have passed information down about
Well, guys ask me that a lot. You know, they read the book or they hear something like that, and they ask me my stuff. I never worked with him, but he's beloved. You know, he was in a great command. You never hear anything operational. You know, being the running the show, and just stepped on perhaps a few toes or something, being an aggressive guy, but. Everybody loves him. He's always welcome. At the reunions. There's where you kind of find out. And yeah, he's a badass. So I wanted to. What kind of training? I hear a lot of different things about the training that went on before your deployments to Vietnam. Currently, and the stuff we were doing, and the stuff that guys in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's gone so far now.
Yeah.
But to hear that, a lot of the training was a few weeks out at an island, and you guys went right overseas. What were you all doing before the
basically, when a platoon was formed up, you come back. Our tempo was like it is today with these guys. It was 6 years of solid rotation. So you come back off the trip, you'd have a couple of weeks of a breather with Mama and the kids, and then you were assigned the new platoon, or you stayed with the platoon you came back with, and you received new troops in from either other platoons or in those days we were taking guys right in from UDTR, from training. Some guys would be coming over from UDT, and other guys, young kids, would be coming directly in from training. They come right to us, which I did not like at the time. I thought that they needed to have some time, at least one trip to go through the our usual checkout, personality checkout with deployments, and a platoon saying yay or nay on whether or not they're the guy we want to live with for the next couple of years. But I was wrong. When I got the young guys in combat, they were faster, better, braver. I don't know if braver is the right term. Well, it's not the right term, but they were just willing to take some unreasonably dangerous chances that the older guys would think twice about doing. And in many cases, providing the leadership was right and they were led properly, that was a great asset to have in the platoons. Again, that was the first time we had been to war, and we learned a lot during that period.
So what year was your first deployment over?
My first trip to Vietnam was 67.
Wow.
And that put me into Tet of 68 with Dick Marsenko. My second trip over was detached from the SEALs, and I was a mercenary advisor for the company running PRUs, Chinese mercenaries, and some non-Chinese and some Cambodians. It was the best job I ever had, because I was the only American with 150 mercenaries. It was a company operation, so the company was running the show, and we were detached from our units. And the SEALs had every province in Four Corps. So every province, which is a state, had its own PRU, and it was part of the Phoenix program. It was the enforcement arm of the Phoenix program. The Phoenix program was a program that the company ran for collecting intelligence, and instead of using the normal source of intelligence, we were using very good intelligence that came from our beloved company. But instead of turning that intelligence over to the ARVNs, or the U.S. military, they had the option to take especially good actionable intelligence and respond to that intelligence with our own enforcement entity, and that was what a PRU was. So we were our own police guys, if you will. We went in, and our primary mission was to capture, but that often ran into a kill situation, because sometimes it's difficult to capture somebody when they've got 50 or 60 shooters preventing you from doing that, so you got to take them out the other way. But that's what we did, and it was, without question, the best job I ever had in my life.
The best job because you were just kind of you making the rules yourself, left alone from the big military, or what?
I was a SEAL, recognized as a SEAL. I mean, I was an enlisted SEAL like yourself. majors and colonels asking me for favors and helping them with this and that. Guys that were assigned to MARSOC V and so on, you know. That nobody knew who I was, nor did they know who the other SEAL advisors were in the other states or provinces. And because we were able to run troops and plan missions and say yay or nay to a big army saying, well, we're going to do it this way, and I'm saying I'm the ground commander, and we're not doing it that way. We're going to do it this way, because that way would kill the guys I'm trying to lead. I mean, it was just a great way to cut a lot of red tape, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
So, did you learn to speak? You said a lot of Chinese. Did you speak that pretty fluently, or did you rely on translators?
And I mean, you pick up words, but you know, especially the businessese words and so on, how to command guys. But the interpreter was with me, and he was also my RTO, so I had the ability to communicate in Vietnamese or in English to the air support units that may happen overhead, or my artillery support that we always had. Like before we went out, we always had a 105 support battery that would be aware of where we were going, what our concentration points were, and we had to actually brief with them, because being a mercenary unit, a civilian unit, you were often walking into shit that was way above your head, and the only way to get out of that, of course, was to get artillery support as soon as you could possibly call it in. And that's basically how we operated. Very similar to what the guys are doing in Afghanistan right now, and we'll be using air.
Yep. Very cool being an E6 doing that. Sounds like a huge responsibility.
Well,
especially
in those days, an E6 was what an E7 is today.
Mm-hmm.
If you were an E6 and 2, during those days, because we had a lot of seaman apprentice, a couple of seaman apprentices, but a couple of third class and second class. But E6, you were typically an LPO, and an LPO carried a lot of weight and was in the position I had. I guess because I could have gone either way. I could have gone the O route, or I could have gone stayed the enlisted route. I stayed enlisted because in those days the O's would have a couple of years, and then they'd have to go to the fleet if they're going to stick around and make a career out of the Navy. The kiss of death would be a naval special warfare officer, because your career pattern was pretty well cut short. So if you're going to operate, you stayed enlisted, and that's basically why I chose that route.
There you go. Sounds cool. Do you you did that? You got a Silver Star over there. Here. What was what happened there?
That was the Chow Doc incident, where the guy that was with us won a Medal of Honor, Drew Dix, and basically it was a SEAL operation. We went into Chow Doc during the overrunning of Chow Doc. It was the capital city of the province. And we jumped on a Jeep, and the Medal of Honor winner, Drew Dix, was the PRU advisor in that province. We happened to be operating up there, and we were using his guys. And he was basically our radio operator, because he knew the area and he knew where everybody was. And I got word that the U.S. nurses, the USAID nurses, were captured by Viet Cong in their quarters. So as soon as we came down off of the line, we pulled into Chow Doc. He found a Jeep. I jumped on the back of the Jeep. It was his Jeep, and it had a 50 M2 on it, Madus. And a couple of guys jumped in the front with 16s and with the Stoner, which is basically our equivalent to today's SAW. And we went charging in the city, blowing down barriers and making two-wheel turns and shit like that. He knew exactly where the house was, and we just blew through about 16 different machine gun nests, fighting our way into to get these girls out. And, basically, ultimately got there, jumped out of the Jeep, and it was inside of a house inside of a concrete compound type wall. they're in here. And he said, where are you? I said, I'm under the bed. He said, stay there. So then we just opened fire and just raked the entire area. And our line of fire, of course, was being kept away from where the bedroom was. Obviously, he had inside knowledge of where the geography of the rooms were, etc. But we killed everybody in there, and then we went in, dragged her out, threw her in the Jeep, and then the shit hit the fan. Everybody got heard our gunfire, and then, of course, everybody that was a bad guy in town came running in on us, and we had to fight our way out through that shit. And, got her out alive, so that was the good side. Then we back in 7 times. If you read Rogue Warrior, you would have read about that incident, about what the 8th Platoon did to get the Americans out of harm's way. And it was for that I think that's what it was for anyway.
There you go. Yeah, very cool. Boy, what a background. And you know, why did you decide to get out?
Actually, a company job, and probably the worst mistake I made. But I also had a family situation and I had 2 kids. I needed to think about them as well. And I did a year with the company, running the Mercenaries, but in a different capacity. And then wound up going back into my profession that I was being trained for in college, engineering, and became an engineer for about 10 years. And then wound up working for a group out of Germany called Henkel, major international chemical company. And in that period, I wound up on the international audit group doing international security work for and post-audit work in terms of going into the various Henkel facilities around the world and checking their performances out on their projects that they have just completed and so on, and making sure that there was a secure, sound system in place for their hazardous chemical storage and processing facilities. Some of you guys may or may not remember the Indian Bhopal incident where Union Carbide had a chemical plant that was sabotaged and killed like 5,000 Indian residences that lived near the facility. So Henkel was very aware of that danger, and I was the guy that they put in to check for the security programs that we had around the world for those kinds of hazardous chemicals. And then that got me in the security business. And then I got out of the Henkel thing, went into the international security game, which I still dabble in. And that spun off because of Dick Marcinko into the film consulting. So today what we do is primarily manage security projects around the world and also consult for the film industry and the kinds of things that we're all talking about right now.
Yeah, big list of accomplishments on that website. I really had no idea until I got on there and really poked around today. Wow! But what was your you've done so much with the film and the advisors. What was the big push that got you on film for the first time?
Marcinko selling the book Rogue Warrior to Jerry Bruckheimer, big producer out here, probably the biggest money producer out here, and I consulted on the screenplay adaptation because Dick was back in Virginia and I'm out here, so he volunteered me, as I mentioned earlier, to do that without even asking me. So I, being the good trooper that I just rogered up and did it. And that was the first one. And that led to doing things for Jerry Bruckheimer, just consulting and doing security for him, as well as consulting and his action films that were related to the specialties that we deal in. And my greatest project, the one that I'm most proud of, is Black Hawk Down. I was associate producer on that and the senior advisor on it. Military put up a tremendous amount of support to support that show. The thing that killed me most about that show was the fact that we had 5 SEALs there. And, when DOD supports something, they send the script around to all the commands that were present during that story. And Admiral Olson, at the time, was an 06 captain, Navy captain in General Garrison's staff, observing how they do things. And of course, when the movie went down, Admiral Olson was the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare. And of course, he came back with, "I don't care if we do this thing. I don't want to talk about classified issues." And even though it came out as a fact that SEALs were in Mogadishu in '93, Olson said it was classified then. It has never been declassified. As far as I'm concerned, it's still classified. And he was there. He was one of the 5 that would have been talked about. That's who Admiral Olson is.
Yeah, he got a Silver Star.
Every
there.
SEAL that was there got a Silver Star.
All right. Yeah, I remember talking to one of the guys covering up with a ballistic blanket, describing what the bullets felt like hitting that thing. He said it was like somebody was beating me with a baseball bat.
Oh, gosh.
You know, so yeah, a lot of people don't know that, and let it go. That's what the Admiral says.
That's what happens.
That's exactly what happens, So, old retired guy now as well, too. But I tell you what, the day my phone rings with the Admiral at WARCOM pissed off at me about something, I still got that yes sir, no sir, and me, buddy. I'll tell you, man.
Last year I was down in SOCOM on the Lone Survivor project that's going to be done eventually, and we had to request permission to embed Peter Bird, the director, into the community. My position was, this thing can't be converted to a screenplay by some guy that doesn't know what the hell we're all about.
Yeah.
It's got to have some sense of who we are. It's got to be the right person, the right personality, with the writing skills. And the only way that can happen is to get him involved in the whole process, get him through Hell Week, get him follow class right through, and if possible, get him in country. So that was looked upon as, oh shit, no way in hell that's going to happen. And I said, I believe it can happen, because I knew I was down at Coronado when Admiral Joe Kiernan, had talked about Lone Survivor. He was definitely a proponent of the book and thought it was an excellent product that the world should read about, to tell the world about who we are, and try to get the interests of the people that should be the ones that we want to have in our program, to look at it and get a sense of who we are and what a great program it could be for the right people. And given that knowledge, I contacted the Admiral and said, this is what's going on. Do you think there's a chance I could get this through? He says, you can get it through. Me, of course, but you can't. I can't speak for SOCOM. And as these guys may or may not know, SOCOM is being run by a 4-star Admiral and Navy SEAL Admiral. And that's in itself unheard of. But goes to show the quality of work that our SEALs are doing these days. But had a meeting down at SOCOM with Eric Olson. And I know Eric from years ago when he was a lieutenant. And we sat, we talked, and he rogered up on it, chopped on it, and next thing I knew, we got Pete Bird down into Buds. He observed Breakout, observed the entire week of Hell Week. He came in and out on that because he couldn't last that long. And then actually went through many of the workups that 5 had done, because it was 5 that was assigned to support the the project of training this guy up. And he made many friends in the process, and in fact deployed to Iraq with the same guys that he watched go through workup. So it was pretty awesome. So we have a writer, director that knows who we are, has written a script that I think is a pretty damn good script. I'd like to see some modifications in it, but we're ready to start shooting an excellent product that's going to reflect the value of what that book is all about.
Yeah, how important is that, or cool for you to be there, a huge influence over all that, but then you know, the guy really pushing the buttons there has seen this, been there. You know, he's not guessing. He's not been watching videos. He's actually been out there and saw it, saw the mindset, talked to the guys, see what they go through. You know, how better of a picture can you paint after seeing something like that?
That's a Picasso
Priceless.
that can never be repeated. And I doubt very much that I could get most of the Hollywood types to do what Peter did just because he wanted to learn what it was all about. And then he wound up being a converted liberal into one of the more hardcore conservatives out here in the West Coast as a result of being exposed to our gentle community.
There you go. There you go. Well, you made a comment today to me, and I'm going to try and hold you to it as best I can, but you talked about coming out here for one of these courses and
I definitely want to do that.
showing these dudes how it is. It'd be very cool. Very cool.
I definitely want to do that. And as you know, we're working on some other things that we can maybe even expand you a little bit. But I love what you're doing. As you told the guys, this is something that Dick and I talked about years ago. We just never had the horsepower to pull it together like you've done down there. And, you know, right where you are is where we used to do a lot of our training, you know, in the Back Bay area and places like that.
Yeah, I tell the guys that, you know, we're still doing it. They're all around here, just the swamps and the rivers and kind of still the Wild West around in Chesapeake.
Jeff for them cottonmouths.
Exactly. You know, love it. How about some final words of encouragement for these dudes? You know, they're just dedicated guys. They work really hard to, you know, what do you got to tell them from your experience?
First of all, I spent a lot of time today going through your postings and so on and getting a sense of who you're dealing with and the guys you're dealing with. And I can see what you're doing. You're exposing these guys the right way as best you can with the time that you're given with them to what it's all about. I can only tell you this. If you have any doubts in your mind about putting yourself through some insane mental torture, don't even bother. If you want to just prove something to yourself and then beyond, go beyond the exercise and do something else in life, don't waste your time. But if you want to be with the most wonderful men that you'll ever be with in your entire life, brothers that you'll never, ever forget, pride of and let me stress the word silent pride of what you are and what you've become and the people that you hang with, then do it. And do everything you can, just as Don is laying out for you. He's giving you an excellent primer on how to get ready for the program. And we need you as a community. We need you guys, but we need you guys only if you're mentally ready to put up with it. It's the mental drive that you need. It's not the physical. The physical certainly makes it easier to get through it. But if you don't have the mental drive, don't bother doing it.
Yeah, you really got to want this thing. And you said something very cool about, you know, the types of guys that get through that training. And it is possible for these guys. You know, it's not this impossible task. You know, unfortunately, you know, so many guys think we're all 6'8" knuckle dragging Dolph Lundgren robotic soldiers, and we're not. You know, we're just different guys, all walks of life, but we got that mindset to get it done. So you know, that's it. That's what it takes.
Yeah, don't let the physical, you know, the brain case housing is what you got to worry about, and what's inside of the brain case housing. The contents inside the brain case housing is what's going to make it happen. Not your guns in your arm, not your abs. That's going to happen. That's going to happen because your mind is going to drive that to happen. Got to be in the mind first. The rest happens.
Guys get so much out of hearing from all the guys that have done it. You know, the World War II, Korea, Vietnam vets, the instructors, officers, and you know, just to be able to, you know, I always try to put a face to the guys that are up here as much as I can. And you know, it goes without saying what a badass you are, and especially that. You know, take the time out for these guys. I know you're busy out there, and boy, do they get a pile out of it. So thanks. Really good job. Really good job, Harry.
My main love is community. My main love is to be sure that we perpetuate this community with the type of people that need to be here. And I'm sure there's a bunch of you listening right now that will be at the reunion one of these days. You just got to do it.
Yeah, that's That's always what I push them. You know, knock that training out and get back down here as an instructor for the course. So
there you go.
You know, get it done. Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. Good job.
Out here.
All right. Oh, thanks, sir.